With the final series of Peaky Blinders coming, I wanted to take a look back at the 5th series and the changes it brought to the show. Not plot or character-wise, but the changes in look, feel, and overall aesthetic, and how that has ultimately affected the story. Of course, there are practical reasons for the show's changes. Netflix, who acquired international distribution rights, was more hands-on during the filming of the 5th series. As a Netflix original, Peaky had to move to shoot in 4K, and therefore they had to upgrade the cameras they used. We wanted to be respectful of the Peaky look, but we wanted a slight twist. It would give a slightly different look from the previous season, more cinematic, emotional. The cinematography this time around is actually much more involved in the show's storytelling. Emotion isn't just delivered through dialogue and on-screen action, but through camera, lighting, and overall design. There's much more experimentation when it comes to camera movement, angles, lighting, and even how color is used this time around. The use of a moving and handheld camera is more prevalent. The increased use of light rays and smoke and the increased prominence of fire as a lighting and backlighting source are just a few things that the show has experimented more with. Not to say that these elements weren't there before, but the 5th series definitely amplifies their usage. The show has moved from something that feels like a slow pseudo-western to something more akin to a fast-paced modern crime drama. So I want to actually discuss these various cinematographic elements in Series 5 and why I actually think they are welcome changes and why I think they actually enhance the Peaky experience. Hey everyone, before we proceed with this video, I hope you can do me a small favor and hit that like and subscribe button if you find this video helpful or interesting in any way, or any of my other content interesting. Don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so you can be notified every time a video comes out. I also have a Patreon which has some extra behind the scenes content for each one of my videos. You can dive a little deeper into my creative process or my writing process or anything like that. So if that interests you, the link to that will be in the description. And don't worry, it's not a fixed subscription or anything like that. You can choose from multiple tiers and you will only be supporting me every time I actually come out with the video. All right, back to the video. Camera movement might be one of the biggest things you notice about Series 5. How shots are framed, how long they are, and how the camera tracks its subjects. It all has a completely different feel. In addition to bringing on C. Bell as the new cinematographer, there's a few reasons why it's like this. One of the series' biggest symbols is actually the swan. The white swan in particular is a symbol of grace, Tommy's ex-wife. In Swan Lake, the white swan is the essence of pureness, beauty, and love, whereas her evil counterpart, the black swan, represents unruly desires. The Swan Lake symbolism doesn't just happen in episodes 4 and 5 at the literal performance of the ballet, but it's also prominent in many other aspects. The garrison, for example, has white swans etched into its walls. But further to that, C. Bell actually likens the cinematography to a ballet. The camera work is more theatrical, performance-based, and rhythmic than before. Rather than trying to intercut shots and shooting subjects various times, the cameras actually choreograph themselves around the actors' performances. The ballet-like cinematography not only added a dance-like quality to the series, it helped capture performances more effectively, meaning longer takes, less cutting, and more movement in the camera work. It's all about the energy of camera movement and having the ability to move the camera with the actors to try and tell the story in the most economical and interesting way. And a lot of the techniques that C. Bell uses are actually built on the cinematographic elements from the past series. The handheld camera, for instance, is probably one of the most effective ways to capture action, and this time around it is utilized more and more. Handheld cameras are very common in horror or documentary filmmaking, as you often need to capture the sporadic and spontaneous actions unfolding on screen conveniently, and this is something C. Bell focused on. However, handheld shots are not anything new from what we've seen in previous series, but as the pace of the show has picked up, they're used more often, in particular in moments of anxiety, tension, and conflict. Perspective shots, mounted cameras, and tracking of gestures are also done more often. These new kinds of shots force our perspective, perhaps giving prominence to certain symbols, or simply giving us more insight into the minds of characters. But also, these kinds of shots give us a sense of forward-moving action. Dolly zooms are employed for the first time ever. The dolly zoom in particular is used a few times. It's a disorienting shot that makes the background seem like it's moving further away as you move closer to your subject. This is done by zooming out in the lens and tracking in closer to the subject with the camera. It's a shot that distorts and is often motivated by anxiety or panic. And of course, long takes that change angles and perspective multiple times are utilized more this time around. One of my favorite long takes is this scene right here, which I will talk a bit more in the next section about lighting. But I will say this long take allows Paul Anderson to simply act without being interrupted, capturing his action as it unfolds naturally. The stage is almost set up like a theater where the actors enter from the sides of the stage and begin to perform, giving us a sense of live performance, almost like a play or a dance. If there's something I've noticed throughout Peaky Blinders series 1 to 4, it's the incredible use of strong dramatic lighting and contrasting shadows. It draws our attention to the emotional depth of certain scenes and draws our eyes to the physicality of certain characters and faces. But sometimes the lighting does something else completely. Strong backlighting in Peaky Blinders is used so often, yet it's not something you pay particular attention to. It casts shadows over characters to highlight threats, danger, or any increased emotion. A huge number of shots are always filmed facing towards bright windows, lights, or flames that overshadow characters. The use of backlighting actually creates pretty nice cinematic juxtaposition in this scene in Season 2. Where Polly tells a story about her daughter being taken from her. We start off with a beautifully lit scene that's almost illusory in a way with candlelight and shallow focus. It speaks to Polly's dream state of not knowing whether her daughter is alive or dead. As Polly's story becomes more intense, the camera inches closer and closer. Then the scene cuts. We experience Polly's sudden shock of being told her daughter has passed through darkness, a medium shot, mostly focused and only backlit by the windows behind her, a sense of complete despair that is now Polly's reality. The cinematography captures this shift in tone. So like I said, dramatic cinematography, extreme juxtaposition, nothing is new in Series 5, but perhaps it's more extreme. The story has moved on, so we need to reflect that. But we also wanted our version of Peaky to retain the stylized lighting set by George Steele in the original series. We watched all the previous episodes and worked out the lighting choices, including the slightly over-the-top style of large beams of light, lots of atmosphere, fire, explosions, and ramped-up speed. We weren't going to change those elements. There's a gruesome scene in Series 5 that reflects just that, and that's when Arthur attacks the Quaker man. We begin by seeing Arthur's face clearly once as he enters, a close-up, that then proceeds to move further and further away as one continuous long take of Arthur beating this man to a pulp. There's a few things to digest in this scene. The use of a moving long take going from a close-up to full-length body shots is not something entirely new, but it's held on for a significantly longer time. And rather than intercutting various shots of Arthur beating this man up, we get a heavy amount of backlighting that casts a shadow over the two. We cannot clearly see everything that's happening, but we infer this man's face is getting carved up. There are probably a lot of practical effects and dramatic cuts that would make this scene look more bloody and shocking, but the backlight creates drama in a unique way that lets the scene unfold in an even more grim manner. Using backlighting creates a supernatural eeriness, especially with the music coming in to mask the screams. Arthur almost seems inhuman. The scene directly after this, we see Arthur in Charlie's yard drinking whiskey next to an open flame. We get a different side of Arthur here, one that's more introspective and perhaps scared. I love the use of fire as a lighting source in Series 5. The use of colder, more mild blues really lets fire come alive at nighttime. The low contrast and color palette of previous seasons almost muted the cinematic draw of fire. It's there, but it doesn't light up the face, set the mood, or express emotion as well. There are very intentional reasons why they use fire as a lighting source in certain scenes. In Black Tuesday, for example, when a journalist walks in and has an interview with Tommy, we get a set lit with white artificial lights. As Mr. Levitt tries to pry further into Tommy's private life, Tommy becomes more defensive, choosing not to divulge into personal matters. Rather, he threatens and blackmails Mr. Levitt. This is in contrast to the tone in the next scene when Ada goes to visit Polly. They have a completely candid conversation about Ada's pregnancy, her fears, and future. The room is illuminated with candles and warm colors. The atmosphere is inviting, and Polly and Ada are comfortable with each other. These conversations happen with family, with Churchill, and even Oswald Mosley when they invited him into their home. So fire is a symbol that's often associated with deep desires or fears or even trauma, and its aesthetic has been greatly utilized in the latest series. Although it may seem like it, this evolution of camera movement and lighting is not something that was sudden in the series. There are distinct differences from series 1 to 4 that have helped shape the Peaky Blinders' identity. Series 5 feels different, yet it still feels like Peaky Blinders. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone. Oh boy, it's been like 7 months since I last released a video. I've pretty much come to the conclusion that it will be like this on my channel pretty often. As much as I try to focus on YouTube, there always seems to be so many things going on in my life that just burn me out, and with a channel like mine, it can be pretty difficult to always be coming up with new ideas unless I'm 100% focused on it, which isn't realistic right now. It's just an outlet to be my creative self and to learn, so if that's something you're into, I hope you can bear with me. I don't know when the next video is coming out, but just know there will be one. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Every little bit helps, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.